Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we discuss the Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels, Azrael, and his returned Primarch Lion El'Jonson. Just what do we know about their relationship? No real need for a spoiler warning today, but just keep in mind I will be mentioning events from across the Warhammer 40k universe. So you have been warned, and with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so in our time, it feels like forever since Lion El'Jonson returned to the current universe. However, in lore, nothing's really happened since then. We're still waiting for a novel focused on him and the Dark Angels, showcasing his relationship and thoughts about his modern day sons. The return of a Primarch is obviously a huge deal, with galaxy-wide repercussions, but it has to be their sons who feel the effect the most, and in particular their first founding chapter, the one-time former Legion. And of all the loyal bloodlines out there, for me, El'Jonson's return must surely be the most striking, shocking, given the nature of the Unforgiven. And that's all symbolised for me by Supreme Grand Master Azrael, who has borne the legacy of the First Legion throughout one of the most challenging times post-Caliban's fall. And we have seen firsthand how Roboute Guilliman's return seemingly affected Marneus Calgar, Chapter Master of the Ultramarines, filling the Chapter Master with doubt, him feeling criticism and scorn from his Primarch, where there was perhaps none. And so it all leads me to wonder on Azrael and El'Jonson's relationship, on just what we could expect to see. How is it all going to go? And while we have yet to receive a novel truly showcasing and exploring it all, we of course have received a few references so far. A few clues that could point us in the right direction. The first being within the Arcs of Omen campaign itself, and Azrael's immediate reaction to witnessing his Primarch returned. There, as you'd expect, it was largely awe. In the next instant, Azrael's bewilderment gave way to awe. A tall figure in a flowing cloak stepped from the mists to place himself between Angron and Dante. Space Marines in black armour manifested around him and spread out down the steps. But Azrael barely noticed them. He could only stare at the warrior with the glowing blade and glinting shield. It did not matter that Azrael had only seen him before in tapestries, frescoes and stained glass. His very blood knew this warrior's identity. His gene seed sang with the truth, teetering as close to being overwhelmed as it was possible for a Space Marine to come. Azrael went to one knee. He was looking at the lion, returned to his gene sons at the hour of their greatest need. Some part of Azrael squirmed with dread, for the Primarch had also returned in time to witness the sins of the Unforgiven writ large. His mind whirled with self-recriminatory images. The rock defiled by invasion, Luther's escape, the horrors unleashed by the Tuculture engine. Yet even those memories could not undermine the surge of raw vitality and exultation that galvanised Azrael at the sight of the lion alive and returned. So yes, adulation at witnessing his Primarch, but then there is a pointed note of that inner dread, the inner gut feeling of all his failings exposed. And honestly, that's surprisingly exactly what we see with Marneus Calgar 2 within the Dark Imperium trilogy. Yes, Azrael and Calgar are very different people, but I definitely think there's shared hallmarks in this reaction. And it's also pointedly notable that upon sight of El'Jonson's risen companions, adorned in the Legion armour of old, Azrael is filled with an instinctive sense of hatred and disgust, having to stop himself striking one. So that also gave us an immediate sense of the difficulties to come for the chapter. However, then of course came the Dark Angels Codex, the much anticipated codex of El'Jonson's return. And though it didn't give us as much information as I would have liked, there were definite highlights to take note of. The first thing is that upon El'Jonson's return to the chapter, we're told Azrael presented him with the Lion Helm, the helm traditionally worn by each successive Supreme Grand Master. The helm rumoured to have one time been worn by the Lion himself. However, the Lion refused this offer, stating he would only take it back on a day he considered a Supreme Grand Master unworthy, and today was not that day. Now, considering this is said to be in the immediate wake of the Wormwood encounter, El'Jonson's either stating that by Azrael's performance in the battle itself, his instinctive move to rescue Dante, facing this threat of chaos in the first place, or because El'Jonson's done a little research on his modern day sons on the way, en route to the encounter. And I think maybe it could be a bit of both. But I don't know how much El'Jonson could have learnt regarding Azrael himself beforehand, given the secretive nature of the chapter. So perhaps it's more to do with his immediate observation. Though I've got to say, I would love to see El'Jonson asking Dante his opinion of the modern day Dark Angels, as they were en route to Wormwood aboard the Blood Angels vessel. Perhaps Dante revealing their aloof, secretive way, that perhaps he doesn't know them well, and indeed he has heard concerning reports of their actions, but that overall Azrael has his respect. I doubt we'll ever get to see such a conversation, but still that would have been very cool to see. However, at least here with El'Jonson telling Azrael to keep the Lion's Helm, it's an immediate sign of recognition and respect. The key is going to be how Azrael takes it and handles it all moving forward. Because again, to compare it to Guilliman and Calgar, Guilliman also made a point of praising and acknowledging Calgar's efforts, his record, but it hasn't seemed to stop Calgar's sense of failure in the face of his returned Primarch and his achievements. And with Azrael's initial gut sense of dread we saw on Wormwood, again, I can't help but think this could be a continuing, underlying narrative that we see. And let's not forget, unlike Guilliman, who has barely been with his chapter and within Ultramar since his return, El'Jonson, on the other hand, is well and truly back within the Rock and in charge of the Dark Angels chapter. A very dominating presence. We're told he travelled around to all the chapters of the Unforgiven, but he firmly has his command chamber and his personal chambers within the Rock. So it's clear he spends most of his time with the Dark Angels themselves, meaning Azrael has to contend with his Primarch's presence a lot, unlike Calgar, which could either be a blessing or a curse, either allowing him to feel his Genesire's respect or his condemnation, whether it's there in reality or not. Now, one of the biggest factors of their relationship is surely going to be the continued hunt for the fallen amid El'Jonson's return. As we know, El'Jonson now seeks to give his fallen sons a chance for redemption, realising that not all of those on Caliban actually knew of Luthor's betrayal, that they were simply defending themselves against El'Jonson's seemingly unprovoked assault. As such, the Lion now, at times, enters the interrogation chambers when a fallen has been captured, speaking with them alone in private, leaving hours later, sometimes sorrowfully, allowing the interrogation to continue. At others, opening the door with the fallen mysteriously gone, which we know meaning El'Jonson has taken them to the Risen, the new mysterious inner circle companions. And this could be the crux of how this relationship with Azrael is going to go. As the Codex tells us, the high-ranking members of the chapter, such as Azrael, Belial, Ezekiel, have been told some of the secrets to what's going on, but that even they do not know everything, and that they are left to their suspicions. If this remains the case, that even Azrael doesn't know the full extent of what's going on, this could absolutely cause some doubt within him. Not in the sense of Azrael's loyalty, let me be clear there, but definitely in the sense of Azrael's own personal feelings of failure. That his Primarch doesn't trust him with everything. Again, coming down to that element of trust. And we're even told how no one within the chapter knows who the inner circle companions are, how they speak only amongst themselves, and have sworn a vow of silence to all outside their brotherhood. I find it incredibly hard to believe Azrael wouldn't have been told the truth about who they are. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to put two and two together here. So I would hope that Azrael is revealed to know the full truth. I mean, he is the only one who knew of Luthor after all. So it would definitely make more sense than not, to me at least, for El'Jonson to have revealed the full truth of Caliban's fate, the Fallen, his own mistakes, to Azrael at least. And maybe there is a clue that that is going to be the case, despite all of these constant references to secrets, as there's a passage that informs us how only Azrael and his closest commanders meet with El'Jonson in his private chamber, emerging visibly shaken by what they have heard. It is within this sanctum, beyond the portal of penumbral sorrow and the chamber of passageways, past which, historically, only Supreme Grand Masters have been permitted, that the Lion holds his true counsels. Here he meets with Azrael, Ezekiel, Belial, and others, on as close to an equal footing as ever they will be permitted. Matters of greatest and most secretive import are discussed. Things are spoken of that may alter the course of the Dark Angels chapter. The Unforgiven, even the Imperium of Man. On more than one occasion, even these storied veterans, knowing as they do secrets fit to blast the souls of lesser men, emerge from these audiences pale and visibly disturbed. So perhaps that does reveal a contradictory bit of truth being given to these trusted few after all. It's really hard to know at this point, in all honesty, as the very next passage then infers yet more secrets being kept from Azrael. At times, as they have waited for audience with their Primarch, members of the inner circle have also heard the Lions speaking with other visitors. These hushed conversations are unintelligible, even to post-human senses. Yet something in the murmuring voices causes a frisson of unease. When they are admitted to their lord's presence, his mysterious conversational partners are nowhere to be seen. Now, this can only be the mysterious inner circle companions, the redeemed fallen, aka the risen. You could maybe argue it's the Watchers in the Dark, as we've seen El'Jonson converse with them before, but I think they are more unlikely, as they have been with the chapter forever, and one carries Azrael's own helm. I don't think the Lion would feel the need to hide those conversations, and I don't think their voices would cause unease within the current day Dark Angels. Exactly the kind of feeling Azrael had when he encountered the Risen upon Wormwood. So that definitely leaves the Risen as the most likely. So to sum it all up, we have Azrael's initial feeling of awe, yet also failure at the sight of his Primarch. The Lion refusing to take back the Lion's helm, telling Azrael he was worthy to wield it. Azrael appears to have been told some things in confidence, but not everything. And it certainly appears, rather than Azrael being held in the most confidence, instead it could well be the Risen. We'll have to wait and see how the story will go, but if it does remain along those lines, I can't see how that wouldn't foster some sense of failure on Azrael's part. That his Primarch mustn't fully trust him with everything, especially when we saw him have that instinctive reaction on Wormwood. So maybe we could well see that similar personal struggle that we've seen with Calgar. Azrael's always struck me as a more steadfast, stubborn, focused individual, so I'd like to think not. But judging by what we know so far, I think I have to say there could well be some personal struggle for Azrael ahead, as he contends with no longer being the master of all the Unforgiven's secrets. But as always everyone, what do you think? How do you think Azrael's relationship with El'Jonson is going to go? Do you think in actual fact it is the Risen that El'Jonson is going to keep in closest counsel? Are there going to be secrets that even Azrael doesn't know? And if so, how do you think that is going to affect the Supreme Grand Master? Will we see him struggle with personal feelings of failure, as we have done with Marneus Calgar? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.